Marigold, Goldie, Templeton surfaced from unconsciousness the way a diver breaks water at night, suddenly, lungs already burning, mind thrashing for shape and context. The first thing she registered was the hush, a crisp, cathedral silence broken only by a slow percolator hiss somewhere nearby. The second was the roof overhead, or what should have been a roof. Instead, a crystalline dome arched above her, panes fogged by pre-dawn drizzle so that peach-pink light smeared across the glass like watercolor. Raindrops slid in erratic zigzags, leaving pale comet tails against the sky. She blinked hard, uncertain which was stranger, waking beneath a glass ceiling high enough to swallow a planetarium, or discovering that she lay sprawled on a low platform bed wearing someone else's clothing. The shirt was a men's Oxford, dove gray, buttery with age. One cuff was rolled past her elbow, the other hung loose, a crooked sail. It smelled of bergamot, sea salt, and a molecular sterility she recognized from high-tech clean rooms. Goldie pinched the fabric, willing her eyes to focus, and noticed the buttons. Each tiny disc bore an etched compass rose so fine it caught the ambient light. But scent and ornament vanished from concern when she saw her own skin. Across the prominence of her left collarbone bloomed a phosphorescent handprint, 5 perfect fingers and the curving meat of a palm, all alive with bioluminescent frost blue light. It pulsed in time with her fluttering heart, bright, dim, bright again, like a lighthouse filtered through skin. She touched it, half expecting heat or pain. The glow only tightened its syncopation, as though thrilled by contact. She lurched upright. The sheet pooled at her waist, revealing long scratches on her forearms, soot-dark, but shallow, as if she'd crawled through metallic rubble. Memory stuttered, the gala, the polished chromium lab space, her presentation about Dreambridge. Then nothing. No, not nothing, heat, the brittle stench of scorched electronics, a man's silhouette framed in violet alarm strobes. Goldie pressed fingers to her temple, trying to shove fragmented images into sequence. A soft hum drifted from the mezzanine below, footsteps followed, bare, purposeful. She scrambled for leverage but her knees buckled, equilibrium sabotaged by mild vertigo. By the time she steadied against the bedpost, a figure ascended the glass spiral staircase, tall, lean, auburn hair messy as storm-tossed leaves. He wore slate sweatpants and a hoodie whose front pocket bulged with a field notebook and a pair of nitrile gloves. For an instant Goldie feared she'd stepped into one of those lucid nightmares where villains masquerade as rescuers. But his expression was wide-eyed, almost bewildered, and his hands, palms open, surrendered, offered a porcelain mug that steamed like a November pier. "Easy," he said, voice a low baritone trained to soothe skittish lab animals. "You fainted. Take it slow." Goldie's throat worked but shape produced no words. She glanced from the mug to the man, to the glowing print, then back. Questions collided in her mouth, jammed like data packets. She managed the simplest, "Who are you?" "Orion Zephyr Callahan." Most people ignore the first name, too mythic, so Zephyr works. His gaze flicked to her collarbone, a muscle in his jaw twitched. "The mark is harmless. Temporary, if we're lucky." She ignored the mug. "Why am I in your shirt?" "You were unconscious. Your lab suit was soaked in halon residue and, well, slagged. I figured clean cotton beat toxic ash." Halon. Explosion. The word loosened another shard of memory, pressure surging through the reactor core, violet light blooming in Goldie's peripheral vision like a newborn star. She tightened her grip on the bedpost. Zephyr set the mug on a plexiglass side table. Condensation beaded on the surface, coffee, strong, laced with nutmeg if her nose could be trusted. He perched on a lucite stool a respectful 6 feet away. "You're in my penthouse, the Stratos Observatory. Emergency protocols routed me here when the fire suppression kicked in. I carried you out through the freight corridor. EMTs were busy triaging 20 other guests, I signed you out against advice. Sorry. It was that or let the board's lawyers spirit you away before we understood what happened." "The board," Goldie echoed, struggling to keep up. The demonstration, Dream Bridge, did it fail? He exhaled through his nose, as though deciding how many bullets to remove before handing her the gun. Dream Bridge didn't fail. Someone sabotaged the reactor that powered its optical core. Small charge, just enough to fry containment. You took inhalation shock, I took shrapnel. He rotated his left forearm, a fresh dermal patch peeked from the hoodie sleeve. We're both standing. Others won't file such clean reports. Goldie's stomach flipped. But this. She tapped the glowing imprint. That isn't from debris. No, Zephyr's eyes, green flecked with amber, settled on her with academic curiosity spliced to guilt. It's Lumavale, version 4. A dermal sensor film we've been testing on synthetic limbs. It bonds to elevated catecholamines, adrenaline surges, then maps to the first stabilizing cardiovascular signature it encounters. I grabbed you to check for pulse during the evacuation. The film transferred off my glove, latched onto your skin while both our hearts were redlining. Now it's keyed to my vitals overlaying yours. She absorbed that, images clicking into place like magnets. So my heartbeat glows with your fingerprint, she said, half incredulous, half horrified. Until we scrub it with a delink solution. Which our lab currently keeps under federal lock while they investigate the blast. Goldie's heartbeat answered with a brighter flare. She pressed a hand over the print, feeling her pulse hammer. When she looked up, Zephyr's cheeks colored, mirroring her own unsteady breaths, like two pendulums forced into synchrony by invisible math. Biology as handcuff. Outside, the rainy dawn finally surrendered to a band of rose gold, casting soft torches across the glass dome. The city below stirred, ambulance sirens wailing faintly, helicopters prowling the riverfront, hungry for a narrative to fit the night smoke plume. Goldie realized the news cycle would crown a culprit before noon, and the glowing sigil on her body felt less like proof and more like a target. We need to figure out why someone wanted your project, or mine, torched, Zephyr said quietly. But first you have to keep that print covered, or half the city will think you stole a comet. Goldie snorted, a brittle laugh she didn't feel. She tugged the shirt closed, fingers trembling at the buttons etched with their mocking compass roses, markings built to point true north, even when every other axis shifted without warning. She had no idea which way counted as north anymore, only that the man across from her was tethered to her heartbeat by accident or design, and that sunrise was already burning the last sheltering shadows away. Goldie's first attempt to stand felt like stepping onto the deck of a boat that had forgotten the concept of still. She braced one palm against the lucite side table, inhaled through her nose the way physical therapy videos taught patients to reset inner ear equilibrium, and counted out a 4-beat exhale. Zephyr reached forward half a step, then stopped himself, hands hovering in midair, unsure if she wanted help or distance. She straightened, chin tilted in silent defiance of the vertigo, and nodded once. That seemed enough for him. He pivoted toward a sliding partition of smart glass and touched the edge. We should clean those cuts, he said. The partition melted from opaque pearl to transparent, revealing a teak and steel kitchenette. Everything gleamed with the compulsive order of a mind that stored lab reagents alphabetically and evidently did the same with cereal. He gestured toward a bar stool. Sit. I'll grab med spray. Goldie took the stool, tucking oversized shirt tails under her thighs. The handprint under the fabric rippled faintly, as though the bioluminescent cells disliked confinement. She pressed her knuckles to it, the glow steadied to a slow pulse, annoyed, but compliant. Zephyr reappeared with a slim metal kit, the kind field surgeons favored for jungle triage. He set out saline, a hemostatic mist, adhesive biofilm strips that looked like translucent petals. As he worked, efficient, wordless, Goldie tracked the method, the precision. Nothing perfunctory. He treated her scratches as if infection were a chess opponent already planning its fourth move. When he finished, she flexed her wrist, testing the seal. Sterile butterfly closures. Military grade, she noted. Leftover from a DARPA grant, he said, packing shards of bloody gauze into a hazard pouch. I ran remote trauma trials in college. Trick stick. That explains the field medic swagger, she murmured, then forced herself back to the core question. You said sabotage. Who profits from blowing up a multi-million-dollar demonstration and nearly killing the lead researcher? Zephyr leaned against the counter, arms folded. For the first time she saw fatigue score faint shadows under his eyes. Dreambridge has dual-use potential. Therapy for civilians, weapon for anyone who wants cognitive mapping in interrogation. Same with Lumavale, monitor vitals to save lives, or to track them without consent. Our board has been courting Pentagon interest for months. Your refusal to license military versions was inconvenient. That's why they parked me in R&D instead of strategy. Goldie rubbed the back of her neck where a fresh bruise bloomed. I knew they wanted larger grants, but murder? That escalates profit motive into psychopathy. He slid a data slate across the island. Look. Security cam stills flicked past, Goldie kneeling beside her reactor module at 2012, Goldie exiting the clean room at 2055, and, stomach punch, Goldie re-entering at 2243, badge held to the lock. Except Goldie had been on stage in the auditorium at 2243 showcasing a montage of veteran dream testimonies. The figure wore her shimmery evening blazer, but the profile felt wrong, shoulders wider, posture predatory. Deepfake overlay? She asked, voice thin. Old school mask and your stolen ID. Facility logs tagged your badge in 3 restricted sectors, including the locker where someone swapped your legal Dreambridge firmware for a Trojan payload. When the reactor overloaded, the board could claim Templeton's experiment corrupted the containment field. Insurance denies payout, you're the scapegoat, shareholders sue, defense firm steps in to acquire the intellectual property at pennies. Goldie stared at the still of herself lifting a coded hard drive from cold storage. The imposter's left hand bore a distinctive scar, wedding ring finger missing the top joint. Her brain supplied the matching personnel file, Dr. Edwin Shalvoy, her one-time thesis advisor. The realization hit like oxygen deprivation. She curled her fingers on the counter. Edwin taught me to code Dreambridge's artifact filters. He could mimic my gesture passwords. And he'd know the calibration override that triggers an ultraviolet surge. Zephyr's gaze sharpened. You just identified him faster than facial recognition. Trauma has recall benefits. She forced a breath. Anger sharpened the edges of fear into something usable. What's our timeline before the narrative locks in? Zephyr tapped the slate, a countdown overlay glowed crimson, 10 hours 27 minutes until an emergency board hearing scheduled for noon, ostensibly to address safety lapses. Evidence would be sealed, Goldie would be suspended pending investigation, federal contracts could be announced to prevent future disasters. A public relations decapitation. 10 hours. She shook her head. We need the original telemetry, the real containment logs. He slid open a drawer, pulled out a matte black card no larger than a postage stamp. Quantum hash keycard. It decrypts off-site server mirrors. I hand-build them for redundancy. He hesitated. There's one mirror they haven't purged yet, but it's sitting inside an archival clean vault downtown. Multi-factor gate. 2 live biometrics, mine and, by twisted luck, whoever's bonded to me through Lumavale. That's you. Goldie blinked. So the sabotage accidentally gave us the only credential that can open the vault. Pretty poetic, if we live through it. She considered weight, risk, her headache, the soft ticking in her ribs that wasn't pain but urgency. Okay. We retrieve the logs, leak them to regulators before noon. But we still need proof linking Shalvoy. Zephyr's lips curved toward a grin too brief to be arrogance, too earnest to be casual. I was counting on your insomnia. She arched a brow. He keyed an intercom command, shelves along the far wall rotated, revealing a VR rig, sleek neural interface with a silvery halo of electrodes. Dreambridge Prototype Number 005, Mobile Edition. I salvaged it before the demo. If you dive into your memory trace from last night, you can capture sensory timestamp markers, voice, gait, the exact biometric pattern when Shalvoy lifted your ID. The feed encrypts itself in metadata, no faked footage can replicate neurotransmitter drift. Goldie's mind leapt through steps, self-induced REM, memory recall, chain of custody encryption, digital forensics. The process was experimental and borderline brutal on cognitive stamina, but it could hold in court. She pushed away from the counter. Let's calibrate it. Zephyr lifted the headband, hesitating. You'll need stable vitals during the dive. The film on your collarbone ties your pulse to mine. If either of us spikes beyond 40 beats above resting, Dreambridge scrambles the capture. Meaning? Meaning I'm your living metronome. I have to stay close, regulate breathing with you. If you panic, we both lose the evidence. Goldie swallowed. The handprint flared once beneath cotton, as if eavesdropping. She rolled her shoulders, meeting his eyes. Then let's practice synchronizing. He set the band gently around her head, cold electrodes kissing temples. Inhale 4 counts through your nose, he coached, his own chest expanding. Hold 2. Exhale 6. They breathed, two strangers welded by circumstance and glowing polymer, anchored by a rhythm that grew steadier with each cycle. On the third repetition the Lumavale pulse matched Zephyr's carotid tick for tick, blue luminescence easing into a soft teal. The device chimed readiness. Goldie closed her eyes. Drop me into the moment I set foot on stage. I want a clear baseline before the sabotage. Zephyr's voice reached her through a tunnel, initiating sequence in 3, 2. As neural twilight flooded her vision, the last thing she felt was his hand hovering inches from hers, ready to catch, but refusing to cage, a promise she suspected would matter more than anything she found in the dream. Inside the neural visor, darkness folded inward like velvet curtains, then parted to reveal the gala's exhibit hall exactly as Goldie had left it 12 hours earlier, no scorch marks, no acrid smoke, only champagne chatter beneath chandeliers shaped like neural dendrites. Dreambridge renditioned memory in unnerving fidelity. If a moment was missing, it left a black seam. If emotion spiked, colors oversaturated until you could practically taste them. Her own avatar stood at stage right, smoothing the lapels of the silver blazer she'd bought secondhand for the occasion. The neural HUD overlaid a timeline at the bottom edge of her sight, 22 hours 31 minutes and 8 seconds, pre-demo final checks. Breathing in the sim felt like breathing in the observatory. Zephyr monitored the sync rate, whispering reminders through the cranial audio port, 4 count in, hold. His voice threaded through the scene, steadying, distant thunder. Goldie triggered capture mode, and translucent icons, camera shutters, sprinkled across objects her hippocampus had flagged as salient, the fluorometer tray holding test ampoules, the orchestra dais where a cellist had been tuning, the reactor access door 40 feet away. Each capture embedded neurotransmitter drift, blood chemistry, and ocular microsaccade data, signatures nearly impossible to counterfeit. She advanced the timeline to 22 hours 42 minutes and 15 seconds. A jolt of déjà vu pinched behind her sternum. Here was the audio-visual glitch that had stuttered across the main display, one frame of magenta noise no one else seemed to notice. She froze playback, zoomed into the periphery. At the left edge of her field of view, a reflection in the reactor door's brushed steel, Goldie herself, but, bolder? No, broader across the shoulders. Zoom again, the reflection's ring finger ended at the second knuckle. Shalvoy's telltale maiming from an old centrifuge accident. Dreambridge allowed multi-angle peeling, letting the user pivot view vectors inside a fixed memory slice. Goldie spun the parallax 30 degrees, bringing the reflection's face into profile. Resolution grainy, but the jaw line and widow's peak were unmistakable. Capture icon pulsed crimson, veracity locked. She felt a surge of triumph, immediately quashed by Zephyr's warning murmur, keep vitals under threshold, Goldie, your pulse is climbing. She exhaled and advanced to 22 hours 43 minutes and 2 seconds, Memory Goldie mounted the stage. Across the floor, Imposter Goldie, with Shalvoy's body mass, badged into Reactor Corridor Alpha. The security sensor above that corridor blinked from green to yellow, an amber security override she had never been trained to use. Capture again. Suddenly the simulation hiccuped, frost spider-webbed across the edges of the scene. Goldie's hippocampal log spiked cortisol, Dreambridge interpreted foreign intrusion. Someone in the present was pinging the headset's address, trying to brute sample the live feed. Zephyr's voice sharpened. Outside access attempt. Must be internal company net. I'm rerouting through a blind tunnel, don't disconnect. Goldie anchored her breath, eyes fixed on the imposter entering the secure alcove. Memory Shalvoy removed a coin-size ampoule from an insulated case, slid it into the reactor coolant bay. The coolant shimmered ultraviolet, wrong color. Capture. HUD stamped, isotope signature, Thallium-202. Illegal. Lethal in aerosol form. A second shadow joined Shalvoy, taller, wrapped in a charcoal cloak coat. Goldie zoomed but the face stayed just outside glare. She isolated the audio stream. Snippets surfaced, half drowned in compressor noise, voice print analysis ran inside the HUD. Probability 78%, Lysander Shaw, chair of the Strategic Acquisitions Committee. Higher echelon than she'd suspected. Goldie's heart slammed once, twice, Lumavale heat pulsed under the borrowed shirt. Zephyr's admonition came like a hand at her back, ease out, you've got what we need. She tagged final audio markers and initiated exit. The scene telescoped inward, pixels raining upward until only darkness remained. Sensory re-anchoring sequence engaged, smell of bergamot, hiss of the real-world percolator, weight of Zephyr's steady breathing in the room. She opened her eyes. The observatory skylight now blazed with full morning. Dreambridge auto-rendered a crystal data shard, evidence file sealed with her EEG hash and Zephyr's cardiac overlay. He removed the visor carefully, his palm lingered half a second on her temple, grounding them both. How long was I under? Goldie asked, voice rasping. 54 minutes. You stayed within 8 BPM of me the whole time. He offered a thin proud smile, then grimaced at his monitor. But the intrusion ping we fought came from inside Lucent's crisis response subnet. They know you've revived memory blocks. Which means they'll scrub the mirror server even sooner. Goldie slid off the stool, steadier now. We still have the quantum key. Zephyr tapped the slim card in his breast pocket. Ready. The vault's 3 miles downtown under the Bastion Data Cooperative. 2 biometric ports, 2 passphrases. He retrieved a backpack already preloaded with a Faraday sleeve, reactive smoke pellets, and an antique revolver that looked more symbolic than practical. Goldie arched an eyebrow, he shrugged. The pellets are deterrent, the gun's my grandfather's, only 3 rounds. Psychological leverage. She threw on black jeans from a neatly folded loner pile. The Oxford shirt, evidence of its own, she buttoned to her throat. The compass rose buttons caught morning sun, scattering beams across the cabinets. She tucked the hem but left the glowing print unfettered, a cravat or scarf would only draw attention if the glow bled through. Car or subway? She asked. Neither. Their security will monitor obvious routes. We'll take the river tram to Piety Street, cut through the art corridor, then enter the financial district via service tunnels. No cameras, no toll gates. Before they left, Zephyr slapped a palm-sized patch over the handprint. The film displayed her actual pulse as a string of dull amber bars, camouflage for the luminescence. It'll film noir your glow for about 2 hours, he said. After that, the cells reoxygenate, we'll have to improvise. Goldie reached for Quasar's leash, Zephyr had already clipped the harness to the sleepy Pyrenees. The dog's presence alone justified sunglasses and a medical assistance badge, perfect cover for avoiding facial scan requests. She ruffled the dog's ears. Ready to be the world's first canine co-conspirator? Quasar yawned, entirely unimpressed. At the elevator, Zephyr hesitated. There's a chance we walk into that vault and trip an alarm linked directly to Shaw's panic room. Goldie palmed the elevator sensor. Then we make the loudest truth serum possible before they can cut the mic. Doors slid open. As they stepped inside, their reflections in the mirrored walls merged, same exhausted posture, same undercurrent of resolve. Goldie watched the pulse bars on her patch align with the faint flutter at Zephyr's throat. Perfect synchrony again. She thought of the Dreambridge doctrine she'd written years earlier, shared cadence strengthens neural resilience. At the time it had sounded academic. Now it felt like prophecy. The elevator hummed downward, every passing floor shaving minutes off their 10-hour countdown. Goldie adjusted the backpack strap, gaze forward, mind replaying the single phrase she'd lifted in audio capture, protocol talon, a term absent from company lexicons. Whatever it meant, she suspected Shaw and Chalvoy were already arming the next disaster. They would need more than evidence, they would need a detonation of their own. She flexed her taped wrist, feeling the micropedals hold firm, and let the elevator lurch them toward street level. Outside, the city was converting morning caffeine into rumor. By noon it would be feeding on headlines. And if things went right, or terribly wrong, those headlines would blaze with a luminescent handprint no smear campaign could extinguish. The Piety Street River tram looked nothing like the Art Deco postcards in tourist kiosks. Its steel skin was sandblasted matte, windows patched with polymer panes after the last hurricane, and the ticket console displayed a handwritten sign, cash only, reader offline. Zephyr fed the slot 2 wrinkled 10s while Goldie and Quasar boarded. The cabin was empty except for a grandmother knitting a bayou green scarf and a pair of dockworkers dead asleep against cargo nets. Goldie chose the rear bench, Zephyr sat beside her, backpack pinned between his knees. Through rain-fogged glass the Mississippi rolled by, swollen, brown, and deceptively slow. She tugged the adhesive patch on her clavicle. Still amber. Good. The dog pressed his huge head onto her lap, an anchor against the tremor in her calf. Far upstream, the skyline's highest shard, the zenith spire, vanished into low clouds. Somewhere near its crown, Lysander Shaw was likely reviewing contingency memos titled Talon Alpha or Talon Beta. Goldie shut the thought down, she'd need every cubic centimeter of focus for the vault. The tram clanged into motion. Immediately the cabin lights browned out, then returned at half strength. An electrical hiccup never worried locals, but Zephyr's posture shifted. There was nothing random about infrastructure glitches on a route seldom used by tourists. He nudged Goldie and jerked his chin to the front door. A man had boarded at the last second, hood up, loitering by the driver's cab. Too purposeful, too dry for a morning this wet. Goldie pressed 2 fingers to Quasar's harness. The dog's ears pricked, the code meant quiet ready. She and Zephyr shared no words, breathing in lockstep had taught them silent paragraphs. Zephyr flicked his wrist, the quantum keycard, no thicker than a sim, rode the inside seam of his cuff with a strip of surgical tape. If anyone tried to lift it they'd have to snap his sleeve. The tram drifted beneath the St. Claude Avenue Bridge, signal dead zone for most cellular bands. The hooded man moved. Goldie's peripheral vision tracked a glint, metal, but not a firearm, a pen-sized hypodermic. Biohacker weapon, high probability of neurotoxin. She counted the benches, 4 rows. Quasar could cross that in less than a second if she loosed the lead. The man passed the sleeping dockworkers, stepped over a coil of rope, and paused at Goldie's row. His eyes were wrong. Too glassy, pupils micro-tracking Goldie's throat, not her face, the telltale search for Lumavale's glow. He smiled in a tight L shape and spoke under breath. Dr. Templeton, Mr. Callahan. Off-book escort. Orders to detain, not harm. The syringe tilted in casual threat. You stand. We depart at the next pier. Zephyr's laugh surprised Goldie, soft, almost polite. "Your badge." Hood flicked back a corner of his coat, revealing a reflective patch with a stylized falcon talon, exact match to the codename she'd pulled in Dreambridge. Protocol Talon was flesh and bone now. Goldie set her hand on Quasar's collar. The dog quivered, waiting. "What company shows credentials before kidnapping?" she said, angle-palming her phone against her thigh. The screen woke to record. "Could it be you're eager for a lawsuit?" "No cameras, Doctor." The board petitioned an emergency gag. "You're already suspended." "Then file a new petition," she shot back, and pressed the hidden "Live Up" shortcut. The phone began uplinking to an encrypted mirror Lazar had built years earlier. Signal was weak in the bridge shadow, but a time-delayed packet would push through once they cleared the pylons. Hood's jaw tensed. He reached for her wrist. Quasar sprang. A flash of white fur, 120 pounds of muscle, intercepting the man's forearm with jaws calibrated by years of gentle retrieval but capable of crushing bone. Hood yelped, the syringe landed beneath a bench, skittering like a beetle. Zephyr lunged forward, yanking the man's hood, slamming skull into steel stanchion. The grandmother shrieked, her yarn exploded into green curls. The tram bucked as the operator braked, but the showdown was over in heartbeats. Hood crumpled, trapped by Quasar's weight, carotid pulsing against slobber-damp jowls. Goldie retrieved the syringe using a napkin. The liquid inside was milky, opalescent, likely a nanotubule sedative with a half-life shorter than accountability. She slipped it into an evidence vial from Zephyr's kit. "This plus our Dreambridge feed equals felony conspiracy," she said, adrenaline turning her voice into bright wire. "Police? Impossible." The first cruiser on scene would belong to the same off-books contractor. They exited at the next stop, leaving Hood zip-tied with the dockworkers, now fully awake and delighted to hold a vigilante citizen's arrest in exchange for a $1,000 tip from Zephyr's emergency cash roll. By the time the tram screeched away, rain had slackened to a warm mist. They jogged 3 blocks through a graffiti-canvassed art corridor where warehouse doors had been painted into Trompelloy galaxies. Goldie felt the adhesive patch peeling, teal sparks leaked at the edges. An iron gate, half-rusted, half-digital with a biometric pad, guarded the service tunnel to the Bastion Cooperative. Zephyr keyed an override, the gate whined open, revealing a concrete chute lit by emergency LEDs. It smelled of limestone and ancient coffee grounds. Quasar padded ahead, nails clicking. 3 turns in, a blast door waited, brushed titanium with 2 recessed scanners, thumbprint left, pulse oximeter right. The quantum keyhole sat between like a mechanical eye still deciding whether to blink. Zephyr wiped condensation from the plate, nodded to Goldie. "Synchronized breathing," he murmured, and she matched his inhale. Left hand, right hand, they pressed simultaneously. Green spirals trailed up the panel as it tasted their oxygen saturation, their shared heart tempo. The Lumavale pulse at her collar synced, a soft strobe behind the patch, as though the polymer itself recognized home code. Zephyr slid the keycard. For half a second nothing happened. Then a second card slot irised open beneath theirs. Goldie flinched. Dual key was the board's protocol. Talon updated the vault since your last mirror. Zephyr stepped back, dread diluting his freckles. Means Shaw installed a kill secure. Without the second card, alarm triggers. She scanned the panel, a minuscule QR insignia, black falcon talon, glowed where the second key should fit. Goldie's mind raced. Quantum cards couldn't be duplicated, but Lumavale was quantum in its own right, its biophoton handshake looped in tangled states between her skin and Zephyr's cardiovascular signal. She tore off the adhesive patch, exposing the glow. "Hold my arm to the scanner. We present the biofilm as the second key." Zephyr's eyes went wide. If it failed, ionic pulses could arc, lighting her nervous system like a breaker panel. But there was no time. They aligned Goldie's collarbone with the aperture. She held breath, Zephyr pressed his palm literally over the print. Blood, sweat, light, merged. The panel flickered amber, red, threat matrix spinning. A tone rose, shrill, interrogative. Quasar whined. Goldie whispered, synchronize, and felt Zephyr's chest hinge on hers. Inhale, hold, exhale slow. The glow brightened, cycling their BPM into the film's organic algorithm. Tone shifted pitch, then resolved into a soft harmonic chime. The blast door thudded, bolts retracted like god-sized rifles chambering. It slid aside, revealing a narrow vestibule and a final plex partition marking the data vault. They stumbled through as the door resealed behind them. Zephyr sagged against stainless steel, sweat glimmering like dew. Goldie's glowing print dimmed back to a tame cyan. That was reckless brilliance, he panted. Shared cadence, remember? She smiled, shaky but alive. We're inside. That buys us 2 minutes before someone upstairs notices the anomaly. Rows of sealed drives and crystal data shards shimmered under cold LEDs. Goldie headed straight to Rack 7, Bay 4, where Zephyr's off-site mirror would live. She located the cartridge, fed it into a portable decrypt frame. A progress spiral spun, cross-verifying blockchain signatures. 40 seconds. Copy to triple redundancy, Zephyr said, producing 2 thumb drives. She slotted them. 30 seconds. Quasar stood guard at the vestibule, ears twitching. 20. Goldie watched hash checks turn green, one after another, power logs, coolant telemetry, internal emails referencing Talon Alpha deliverables, exactly what regulators would need. 15 seconds. The last file threw yellow, corrupted. She opened a hex preview. It wasn't corrupted, it was encrypted text. Subject, secondary containment if Templeton survives, initiate phase 2 at 1300 hours. Use her epigenetic sequence, sample stored under Quasar. Outcome must appear natural cardiac arrest. Goldie's throat dried. They harvested DNA from my dog. Zephyr read over her shoulder, jaw setting. Phase 2 starts at 1 p.m. That gives us, he checked his watch. 4 hours. The drives finished. She yanked them, slid one into a Faraday pouch, another into the dog's service vest pocket. The decrypt frame ejected the original cartridge, she replaced it, door mags locking. Let's vanish, she said. They sprinted back toward the blast door, now a solid wall. Autolock had re-engaged. Zephyr cursed. Mechanical overrides only respond to seismic breach or internal fire. Goldie scanned the vestibule, one sprinkler head. She pulled a smoke pellet, snapped the igniter. Purple plumes filled the tiny chamber, heat sensors chirped. Overhead, the sprinkler head burst with a roar of foam. Alarms screamed. The bulkhead unlatched 3 of 6 pins, enough for Zephyr's pry bar to wedge a gap. He shoved, hydraulics groaned. Quasar wriggled through first, Goldie followed, foam slick. Zephyr squeezed last as the door shunted closed, shearing off a strip of his sleeve but leaving the quantum card intact. Red strobes painted the corridor. They dashed back through the maze, lungs burning. No footfalls yet, security response time to blast level alarm was at least 3 minutes. They burst into daylight via a maintenance hatch behind an abandoned coffee roastery. Sirens dopplered in the distance, drones buzzed overhead, seeking the alarm's origin. Goldie shoved her phone against Zephyr's, the drive dumped a burst transmit to 10 pre-programmed regulators and 4 investigative journalists. Progress bar, green. The file was gone, irrevocable. Only then did she sag against him, temple to his collarbone. The Lumavale print beat a steady turquoise, no longer anxious, almost celebratory. His arms circled instinctively, and for a 10 count the whole world narrowed to the rhythm of shared, living pulses. Quasar barked once, urgent. A drone tilted, camera iris dilating toward them. Goldie pressed the Faraday pouch against her chest, pulled Zephyr by the hand. Time to disappear again, before Phase 2 found a new target. The countdown to 1 p.m. ticked inside both their skulls like a metronome synced to a life glow. They refused to let dim. Marigold's shoes slapped through puddles as they cut south across Chartres, ducking beneath wrought iron balconies where cafe patrons stared, phones half-raised, unsure whether to film or flee. Sirens converged behind them on the Bastion complex. Good, the louder that scene became, the smaller they looked. Ahead, a fire escape ladder dangled one story above an alley strewn with carnival beads and smashed beer bottles. Zephyr sprang, caught the lowest rung, hauled it down so Goldie and Quasar could climb. They mounted 3 flights to a tar paper roof glazed with rain. Only there did they pause, doubled over, lungs wheezing steam. Goldie checked the Faraday pouch, thumb drive secure. Her clavicle still glowed teal through shredded cotton. Zephyr's sleeve, half torn by the vault door, fluttered like a battle flag. Noon sun threatened to break through the cloud lid, gilding the river in the distance. They had perhaps 90 minutes before the media uproar pivoted from "mystery data leak" to "where are the whistleblowers?" Zephyr knelt by a rusted vent pipe, pried up a square of roofing felt, and produced a phone no larger than a matchbook, his emergency darklink. He powered it, jacked in an encrypted SIM, and accessed a private mesh feed. Goldie crouched beside him, shoulder to shoulder, watching lines of code crawl like ants. The feeds were already exploding. Regulators in D.C. pinged acknowledgements, 3 investigative journalists confirmed mirror downloads, the FDA whistleblower office requested an on-record interview. But buried among pop-up notifications was a fresh memo filed 20 minutes earlier by Lucent's crisis director. Zephyr tapped it open. The subject line screamed all caps. Phase 2, target confirmed. Launch window 13 to 1310. Vector, aerosol. Attached, a geofence map around Lafayette Square, 5 blocks from where they sat. At 1 p.m. Shaw planned a press appearance there, spinning the fire as proof Lucent needed federal partnership. The memo's last line froze Goldie's blood. Genome beacon calibrated to subject MT-Psi. Guarantee fatal arrhythmia within 90 seconds of exposure. Subject MT-Psi, she whispered. That's me. Wait, Zephyr said, scrolling. The reagent key listed mitochondrial alleles, not hers but his, tagged Psi for experimental therapy recipients. 3 years earlier, after a climbing accident, Zephyr had undergone a CRISPR mitochondrial rescue trial. Only a handful of people carried those edits, including him. Goldie's stomach dropped. It's not my epigenetic data they stole from Quasar's fur. Quasar's been shedding your cells, skin, hair, since you adopted him. Shaw thinks he's targeting me, but the beacon will lock onto you. Zephyr's eyes flicked to the date, July 17th, his mother's birthday. She died of cardiac arrest. The symbolism wasn't lost on either of them. He cleared his throat. Then I'll stay clear of Lafayette Square. No, Goldie's voice came out steel. If you don't show, they'll assume the beacon failed and escalate. Next vector might be ballistic. She rubbed Quasar's head, mind racing. We have to neutralize the aerosol or scramble its homing logic before 1 p.m. Antidote? The memo says arrhythmia via optogenetic nanocapsules. They open when they read your mitochondrial signature. If we blind the reader, alter your electromagnetic aura, the capsules won't unlock. Zephyr lifted an eyebrow. Blind them with what? Goldie pointed at her glowing skin. With this. Lumavale was a living photophore sheet tuned to his vitals overlaying hers. If she could overdrive its emission spectrum, she could flood the beacon sensors with false positives, drowning out the real target signal. They'd need power, high-frequency pulse, enough to push the polymer into bloom without cooking her dermis. Across the roof sat a maintenance shed with a giant, humming HVAC unit. Goldie darted over, inspected the control box, 48-volt DC bus, inverter rated for 3 kilowatts. Perfect. She yanked the panel, revealing terminals fat as her thumb. Zephyr joined, producing a pocket multi-tool. Together they stripped 2 lengths of copper ground wire, fashioned improvised leads. "You're going to wear an air conditioning inverter," he said, half amazed, half appalled. "Only for 60 seconds. After that I'll either glow like a supernova or—" He didn't let her finish. "I'll modulate voltage manually." "You say when?" They spliced leads to the Lumavale edge where the film met her clavicle. Fabric hissed as rain hit hot circuitry, the polymer shimmered, hungry for current. Zephyr eased the inverter dial. A faint buzz vibrated Goldie's bones, the handprint flared from teal to blaze blue, then into a blinding white so pure it cast shadows on the rooftop gravel. Her pulse raced, Zephyr throttled down, keeping her heart under tachycardia threshold. Goldie gasped, eyes watering. "Lock that amplitude." "Readings?" Zephyr's dark link pinged, he'd set it to sample RF echo from her skin. The beacon frequency bank clocked critical overload. Any sensor within a mile would register a tsunami of mitochondrial markers, impossible to isolate. They cut the leads, the polymer retained the charge, glowing like trapped aurora. Quasar barked approval. "Clock says 12:37, Zephyr noted. "Press event in 23 minutes. Goldie lobbed the dead copper leads off the roof. "Let's give the cameras a light show they'll never forget." They descended emergency stairs, emerging onto Camp Street amid lunch-hour foot traffic. Office workers, food truck lines, tourist kids chasing pigeons. No one seemed to notice the woman whose chest radiated ghost-white through soaked cotton. Clouds finally parted, sunlight colliding with her glow to bizarre angelic effect. At the edge of Lafayette Square, vans branded with lucent logos ringed a portable lectern. Reporters clustered, Shaw flamboyant in a navy suit, a lapel pin shaped like a falcon talon. He glanced at his watch, confident. Goldie and Zephyr slipped behind a magnolia sapling 20 yards away. Zephyr pulled a compact spectrometer from his pack, sampling air. "Nanocapsules dispersing, see the spike." He showed a shimmering graph. "Capsule density rising." Goldie exhaled slowly, centering heartbeat. The handprint blazed, throwing ripples across her neck. Capsule density plateaued, then plunged. Shaw frowned, tapped an aid. Nearby sensors must have reported saturation failure. He cleared his throat at the podium. "Ladies and gentlemen, Lucent will not be deterred by misinformation." Goldie stepped into the open. Phones rose instinctively, reporters recognizing the whistleblower from leaked memos. A ripple of gasps, her glowing skin looked supernatural beneath the noon sun. Shaw's mic sputtered as cameras pivoted. "Dr. Templeton," he improvised, "I'm relieved you're safe. Security feared you were harmed in the accident." "Accident implies chance," she called, voice amplified by every live-streaming phone. "Evidence sent to federal regulators says otherwise. And your Phase 2 attack, nice try, but your beacon's hunting the wrong genome." Reporters murmured, some aimed drones that zoomed into the air, transmitting 360 degrees video. Shaw's face drained. He signaled a bodyguard, same talon patch, but before the man advanced, Quasar bounded between, jaws bared. The crowd recoiled, security hesitated, no one wanted to shoot a service dog on live feeds. Goldie produced the syringe she'd bagged, waved it overhead. "Sedative, unlabeled, recovered from your operative. Assaulting a federal whistleblower carries 20 years, Lysander. Maybe plead it down to manslaughter." A siren yelped. 2 black Suburbans rolled up, not Lucent's. U.S. Marshals exited, rifles slung. Goldie's evidence and journalist blasts had reached the right ears faster than Shaw predicted. Marshals read warrants, Shaw's hands raised, mouth crafting a smile that never reached his eyes. As he was led away, rain resumed, washing sweat from Goldie's hairline. The polymer on her skin cooled, glow dipped to faint cyan. Zephyr joined her, still spectrometer in hand. "Capsules inert," he said. EMA sensors show them shutting down, the beacon lost its target. Goldie's knees threatened to buckle, adrenaline vacuumed out, leaving emptiness. Zephyr caught her by the waist. Cameras zoomed. Reporters angled mics. But Zephyr whispered at her ear, words only she could hear above the storm of questions. Breathing, golden girl. 4 in, 2 hold, 6 out. She followed the cadence. The glow steadied. In the distance, a patch of sky split to reveal improbable blue, a promise or maybe a dare. Marshals loaded Shaw into a cruiser, the door slammed, echoing like period at the end of a very long, dangerous sentence. But Goldie knew stories never ended clean. There would be depositions, grand jury subpoenas, corporate hydras sprouting new heads. Still, in this breath, with Zephyr's pulse thudding against her shoulder and Quasar leaning warm against her calf, she felt the impossible weight of relief crack into something lighter, hope, maybe, or the raw blueprint of it. A reporter shouted, "Doctor, what's next for Dreambridge and Lumavale?" Goldie met the lens, rain streaking her cheeks like war paint melting. Next. We give nightmares a harder target and corruption fewer places to hide. Starting with transparency, full clinical data, open source protocols. Zephyr lifted her hand, the one not glowing, and kissed the scraped knuckles. The gesture wasn't for cameras, though every lens devoured it. It was pulse language, still here, still yours, still synchronized. Somewhere behind the clouds thunder rumbled, but Goldie realized it might also have been her heart, amplified in her veins, resonating across the Lumavale that refused to go dark. Whatever storms came next, they would meet them breathing together, 4 in, 2 hold, 6 out, until their shared cadence rewrote power's oldest code, fear. Marigold spent the next 3 weeks learning that victory has a half-life. On day 1 after Lysander Shaw's arrest, Lucent Bioworks stock cratered 37% before halting in a spiral of circuit breakers. Day 3, the remaining directors resigned under SEC scrutiny. By day 5, a Delaware bankruptcy judge approved an emergency debtor-in-possession loan, money supplied by Alethea Vanguard, a venture fund notorious for buying distressed biotech patents and repackaging them for defense. In a single paragraph of legalese, Alethea gained provisional control of every asset she and Zephyr had just risked their lives to protect. Day 19 found them in Washington, D.C., corralled with Quasar inside a nondescript conference room 2 floors beneath the Rayburn House office building. Coffee tasted of burnt rubber, fluorescent panels buzzed like irritable hornets. Goldie's glowing handprint had dimmed to a ghost-pale aquamarine, but the Congressional aides who delivered briefing folders still stared as if she might ignite at any second. Zephyr paced behind her, a caged kinetic equation in charcoal suit, hair reluctantly tamed. He adjusted her headset mic, murmuring, 4, 2, 6. We breathe together. She nodded, heart rate eased. The door opened. In strode Congresswoman Soraya Medina, chair of the subcommittee on emerging threats, whip-sharp blazer, sneakers that squeaked confidence. Behind her, a silver-haired man in a marine dress uniform, Major General Arlen Whitlock, DARPA liaison. Goldie's pulse flickered. DARPA had once funded Zephyr's trauma patch, Whitlock's signature had authorized it. Medina got right to it. Dr. Templeton, Mr. Callahan, the evidence you leaked stopped an assassination and exposed corporate malfeasance. For that, we thank you. Clip of pages. However, Lucent's Chapter 11 has transferred lean priority to Alethea Vanguard. They now hold provisional stewardship of Dreambridge and Lumavale. Zephyr's jaw set. Alethea exists to privatize public good into black box profit. Medina's eyebrow twitched, agreement or caution, hard to tell. General Whitlock is here because DARPA has been approached to co-license both platforms under the guise of psychological resilience for warfighters. Before we field that request, the committee wants your assessment. Goldie inhaled. The air smelled of cold dust and printer toner. Dreambridge was built to treat PTSD, not to rehearse combat in people's nightmares or interrogate prisoners, which is where weaponization goes. Lumavale belongs on cardiac wards, not on drones sniffing genomes. Whitlock folded his arms. Doctor, your idealism does you credit, but dual use is the price of innovation. Penicillin, GPS, the internet, all military cross-pollinations. The question is whether you accept that equation or let someone less scrupulous solve it for you. Goldie opened her mouth, but Medina cut in. Officially, you two are key witnesses, not defendants. Unofficially, we need a counter-proposal more compelling than Aletheus. Do you have one? Zephyr produced a flash drive, not the evidence drive. This one was labeled Candela Vault. 10 days ago, before bankruptcy court sealed the labs, we quarantined a developmental fork of Lumavale, firmware 5. It hard-codes a wearer consent handshake. No biometrics, no glow, unless the user's conscious cortex grants permission every 24 hours. It bricks under coercion. He plugged the drive into the table hub. A hologram flickered, projecting code in lavender streams. Whitlock leaned forward, intrigued despite himself. Zephyr continued, we call it Lumavale Libra. It satisfies medical telemetry but collapses as a tracking beacon. We want the government to back this fork as the only FDA-cleared lineage. Every other branch becomes contraband. Whitlock exhaled through his nose, part skepticism, part admiration. You're proposing an intellectual property neutron bomb. Destroy the strategic value so no one bothers stealing it. Precisely, Goldie said. Pair that with DreamBridge's open-source protocol under a Creative Commons license. No proprietary lock means no monopoly to weaponize. Medina turned to Whitlock. General. He considered. DARPA's mandate is national security. Sometimes that's a laser-guided missile, sometimes it's herd immunity. If Templeton and Callahan can guarantee Libra's brick-on coercion feature, it neuters the tech for espionage but keeps clinical upside. I'd rather fund transparent cures than chase another scandal. He faced them. Prove it in 48 hours. Aletheus' offer expires then. That evening, Safe House Hotel, Potomac rain whispering against bulletproof glass. Goldie sat cross-legged on the carpet, laptop guts splayed like clockwork around her. Zephyr sprawled on the couch soldering microinductor loops for the Libra patch. Quasar snored like a faulty humidifier. At 2:17 a.m., Goldie's comms console chimed, an encrypted email signed E. Chalvoy. The disgraced mentor was apparently still at large. Goldie, you don't understand. Shaw wasn't the apex. Alethea funded Talon from day zero. They already possess DreamBridge hardware Mark III, miniaturized for ocular insertion. They'll debut it at their Bermuda retreat, 19:00Z tomorrow. Stop them or Libra is moot. Attached, a flight manifest showing Aletheus Gulfstream departing Reagan National at 14:05 tomorrow, 40 minutes after their DARPA demo. Destination, Bermuda. Zephyr read over her shoulder. He's manipulating you, he muttered, though his brow furrowed. But if he isn't? Goldie's glow brightened nervously. General Whitlock gave us 48 hours. Alethea might be moving faster. She traced code on the laptop. Libra bricks under coercion, yes. But if Alethea demonstrates Mark III ocular chips to investors tonight, momentum could bulldoze everything. We need proof it exists and is non-consensual. Zephyr opened a drawer, withdrew 2 passports, emerald covers stamped Republic of Ireland. I keep dual citizenship for moments like this, he said wryly. Private planes file minimal customs data. We could board as tech consultants. Callahan Nanometrics has a retainer with Alethea. Goldie stared. We're exhausted and legally fragile. The house demo is tomorrow at noon. You can't testify from 800 miles away. I don't have to. He touched her glowing collarbone. Libra's neural web overlay piggybacks DreamBridge. If you record the subcommittee session with Libra running, I can co-host remotely. My cortical feed appears beside yours in AR. Meanwhile, you sneak onto the Alethea flight, grab evidence. Goldie blinked. Switch roles. I staged the heist, you charm Congress. He shrugged. You've done charm, I've done heist. Time for skill exchange. She considered logistics. She'd need a zero-day hack to spoof Gulfstream crew lists, tranquilizer pens for potential guards, a mobile Dreambridge headset slim enough to pass as sunglasses. Memories of the vault, the tram, the glow charging flooded back. She remembered what fear tasted like and how adrenaline turned terror into architecture. All right, she said. But we reverse one thing, Quasar goes with you. House regulations allow service dogs, Bermuda customs will quarantine him for rabies, and I can't risk that. Quasar, somehow comprehending, nosed Zephyr's palm. Zephyr's grin faded to solemnity. If Libra fails at the demo, Whitlock will hand the tech to DoD. No second chances. Then don't let it fail, Goldie whispered. She leaned in, forehead to his. Through cloth and bruises and solder smoke, the Lumavale print warned, steady wavelength, equal parts promise and alarm. They breathed, 4 in, 2 hold, 6 out. Perfect cadence. Next morning, National Airport General Aviation Wing buzzed with quiet wealth. Goldie wore a navy jumpsuit, press badge reading Allen Sky, system integrator. Sunglasses concealed Dreambridge nano lenses, the glow on her clavicle muted under electrochromic film. She boarded Alethea's Gulfstream last, trailing 2 men in linen suits and a woman carrying board minutes. No one blinked, consultants looked like everyone else in aviation's VIP underbelly. As cabin doors sealed, her earpiece clicked. Zephyr's voice filtered in. House session starts in 10. They installed Libra on my arm, Quasar cleared K9 security with a wag. You. Airborne in 5, she murmured, eyes on her tablet mirroring cabin Wi-Fi signatures. She isolated an encrypted subnet, 3 devices in the cargo hold, odd map tags labeled Cabrilla, Alethea's codename for the ocular Dreambridge units. Bingo. Breathe, Marigold. Zephyr's voice again, softer. If fear spikes, think of thunder over the ridge and how we outran it. Goldie smiled, despite turbulence. The pilot announced takeoff. As G-forces pressed her into leather, the glow beneath her film fluttered, excited, not warning. Time to out-scientist the predators. She slipped a fiber optic under her seat, jacked into the cargo subnet. Code scrolled. The ocular firmware's root password popped up, Chalvoy's birthday. The man was brilliant yet predictable. She injected Libra's consent routine, overwrote the user acceptance flag to permanently ignore non-owner commands. If Alethea demoed the chip tonight, it would break the moment any investor tried to force a dream capture. Thunderheads loomed outside, sunlight strobing the cabin. Goldie sent the commit packet, heart soaring with the plane. She whispered, deployment complete, and closed the circuit. Capitol Hill, 11:58 a.m. Eastern. Zephyr adjusted his tie, palm resting on Quasar's broad skull. Whitlock nodded, Medina gavelled the session open. When Zephyr activated Libra's AR overlay, the committee tablets projected a live silhouette beside him, Goldie's avatar, rendered in shimmering wireframe. Gasps, even Whitlock's composure cracked into a grin. Zephyr spoke first, voice steady, Madam Chair, honorable members, Libra cannot be coerced. Your own pulse is the only passcode. He tapped his forearm. The holographic Goldie mirrored motion from 33,000 feet, flipping digital slides that revealed Libra's anti-tracking protocol, Dreambridge's open-source license, and a real-time cockpit cam of the Gulfstream, sealed evidence chain if any Alethea executive later cried sabotage. Committee jaws dropped. At 12:07, a marshal whispered into Medina's ear, Alethea's flight manifest had reported technical anomalies, returning to DC for inspection. The case for Libra was suddenly unassailable. Medina banged the gavel. The subcommittee formally endorses the Libra lineage and will recommend immediate prohibition of all non-consensual derivatives. Congratulations, Dr. Templeton, Mr. Callahan, you just rewrote the ethics manual. Applause. Reporters stormed the chamber. In the Gulf Stream, Goldie exhaled relief so forceful her headset missed it. Turbulence jostled coffee mugs and investor egos alike. Alethea's COO cursed, stabbing at a dead ocular chip. Goldie allowed herself one small laugh. Her earpiece hummed. Zephyr again, dinner on the Potomac? I know a pier where the sunset paints the water Lumavale blue. Goldie pressed fingers to her still glowing collarbone, no longer a warning signal, but a lighthouse. 426, she answered. Save me a seat. Outside, the jet banked east, homeward. Far below, the Mississippi of her nightmares merged with the Potomac of her hopes, and somewhere in that confluence she realized the half-life of victory might be short, but the half-life of shared cadence, of stubborn, luminous love, was something closer to infinite. Goldie's Gulfstream touched back down at Reagan just after sunset, winglets carving amber trails through the vapor haze that hung over the Potomac like a hesitant curtain. She disembarked to an arrivals lobby humming with TV crews, but a pair of plainclothes marshals, eyes discreetly tracking every phone lens, escorted her through a backstage corridor perfumed by jet fuel and floor wax. At the curb, Zephyr leaned against a battered Tesla Cybertruck whose brushed panels wore rain spots like constellations. Quasar sat in the passenger seat, head poking through the open window, tail drumming applause on the door. Before Goldie could speak, Zephyr lifted a small cardboard carry box. Victory tacos, he said. Found the only bodega in D.C. that still fries real masa. She grinned, ducked into the truck. Quasar's tongue slurped her ear in greeting, she pushed him back with mock outrage, heart surging at the familiar thunder of shared cadence. As they pulled into airport traffic, a chime from Goldie's phone interrupted the euphoria, encrypted call, Shalvoy. She hesitated but accepted, curiosity was a bone she could never leave buried. Goldie, Shalvoy's voice rasped through packet delay, Alethea's retreat wasn't a bluff. They have Mark III prototypes stashed offshores. You bricked the public demo, but they'll just pivot to classified buyers. Talon never cared about congressional approval, the Bermuda event was window dressing. Goldie clenched her jaw. Then why warn me? Because I built Mark III. I know its ghost circuits, the ones that still work even when your Libra patch bricks the main interface. They have a backdoor, keyed to my genomic hash. His voice broke. I want it erased, the code, the hardware, everything. Help me. Zephyr flicked on the secure mic so he could join. Where's the stash? Navassa Island. Old fiber optic relay bunker from the Clinton era. No permanent population, no oversight. Alethea's drone barge delivers supplies monthly. They tucked the chips there, in a farm-grade vault. Next barge departs Charleston in 16 hours. Goldie exchanged a look with Zephyr. Navassa lay in disputed waters between Haiti and the U.S., a legal no-man's land. Perfect for illicit bioware. You have proof? She asked. I have coordinates, access codes, and a kill string that triggers the vault's failsafe. Shalvoy exhaled, shaky. I'll send them if you promise to finish what you started. She muted the call, turned to Zephyr. Trap. Likely. But if it's real, leaving those chips intact renders Libra a finger in the dam. Your call, Golden Girl. Goldie toggled the line. Send everything. If it checks out, I'll burn Talon to the seabed. Minutes later, encrypted files flashed onto Goldie's screen, 3D schematics of the Navassa bunker, thermal signatures of the lithium-safe vault, and an eerie video clip, rows of Mark III ocular capsules glowing like demonic pearls on stainless racks. Each bore a QR Talon. Zephyr exited onto the I-395 ramp toward the harbor district. I know someone with a seaplane, he said. Rusty McAllister, flies relief supplies to the Keys. Owes me a favor since I patched his daughter's asthma monitor with Lumavale V.1. We can be over Navassa by dawn. Goldie's fatigue clenched, but adrenaline overrode. Congress will subpoena us tomorrow for follow-up. If we disappear for 36 hours. Medina will assume we're gathering corroborating evidence, Zephyr finished. She won't complain. And if we don't return, she'll know exactly whom to indict.